We all have a very important, completely unique, completely divine blueprint of an ego that, it has the accumulation of all of our life experience that, we get to really learn how to work with and merge with the higher self, with our evolved aspects to, really bridge heaven and earth.
Welcome to Drops of Gold. I'm Jeff Scult, fellow traveler on the path of revealing the gold within. Now, a little secret, it's already inside you. We just get to reveal it. This isn't about me, it's about we. The sparks, the stories, the souls shaping a more connected world from the inside out. Here we drop in with those whose lives are a transmission, voices of transformation, embodiment, and truth, offering golden nuggets to carry with you on your journey to receive with ease, to simply be free. This episode is brought to you by One Golden Thread, regenerative nature wear for your journey back to self, woven with the ethos that we are all connected. If you've never felt the feeling of the feeling, this is your invitation. Use code DROPS of GOLD at checkout at onegoldenthread.com. That's ONE, goldenthread.com for a golden gift off your first purchase. From our heart to yours. Let's drop in. Your gold is here. Today, we're honored to welcome Alora Rose, a deeply embodied guide whose work sits at the intersection of somatic healing, trauma transformation, and the emerging field of psychedelic wellness. Alora's practice draws from a rich tapestry of modalities: yoga, breathwork, psychotherapy, meditation, Eastern nutrition, metaphysics, and energy work, woven together through her own initiatory path of healing, awakening, and returning to wholeness. This is a heart-opening, myth-dismantling conversation with a woman who lives what she teaches. No hype, no performance, just embodied wisdom. Let's drop in. Welcome to Drops of Gold, Alora Rose.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Such an honor to be here.
How are you arriving today? What is alive inside and what is real for you?
Well, definitely in a big period and chapter of transition again. And really feeling a lot of aspects of self and former identity layers falling away. Feeling an opportunity to create a lot of space to just be empty and to receive guidance and wisdom and messages from source, higher self, just really in the flow of magic and synchronicity and paying very careful attention to what's presenting itself to me.
Thank you for sharing so authentically and vulnerably, as I know that we're not going to deviate from. So it's going to be all that. It's also, you're having a very LA experience.
Clearly.
Because as many of us have experienced, you come to LA for 3 days and you stay for X numbers. So I think that's been happening for you.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 3. It's been about 3 weeks now.
Yeah, so there's so much to dive into, but let's actually just start there for a minute, because what's been your experience in LA? What's been the roses, the thorns, the highs, the lows, the what the fucks, and everything in between?
Yeah, it's been very full spectrum and quite unexpected, actually. This is really my first time spending significant time in LA. However, for about 10 years, I worked for companies while I was based in New York and San Francisco that were based in LA. So I had this kind of like parallel world and reality that, I was operating and working with while I was elsewhere. So it's really interesting to be here and kind of compare and contrast, what I was experiencing during that window of time in my life, and kind of how LA and the culture here was in its own way an incubator for that, and kind of a holographic reflection point for for the evolution that I was in then, and kind of seeing that emerge now. It's been really magical. It's been very synchronistic. There have been just a lot of really beautiful invitations to expand and to connect and to have an opportunity to really meet myself anew through the reflection of people who don't have former reference points. So that's always a really profound and beautiful and opportune experience to have. I've also been experiencing this kind of ego death phenomenon, an experience of just aspects of my past that probably just didn't have enough time and space to be held. I've been gifted that time and space now, so just really being with parts that needed more attention and more listening and more holding as they transmute.
Well, you brought up one of the through lines of something I thought it would be interesting to talk about, because as I've gotten to know you and as I've read about you and seen some of the videos on you, it's like, wow, is this one of the queens of ego death? Now, you're clearly doing that for yourself. Is that also how you would describe what you're inviting and what you are holding the mirror for others? Because I know that you're in partnership with Ronnie and Ronnie Landis, who was the first part of this episode for those that are diving in now. But what he's doing physiologically, perhaps you're doing emotionally, and I don't want to distill it down too simplistic, but I also want to just ground this as being real. Like, I mean, how do you describe how you enter into people's worlds to hold a mirror for them to transmute, transcend, and transform?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and thank you for the new brand, Ego Death Queen. I'll take it. Yeah, that's definitely been, a massive part of my personal experience. I've lived many very distinct lives and lifetimes in this one incarnation. I've really recognized that my soul came here to just see how many times she could reinvent herself and how many different aspects of this experience she could master. So that's something that I really come to understand. And in the space of my work, that is definitely a foundational component of it. I'm working with people in a very psycho-spiritual somatic therapy capacity. So we're working through the vehicle of the body, the lens of the body, and working with a lot of different systems of the physical body, understanding that the physical body holds the imprints and frameworks and kind of exoskeleton structures of our ego identity that have neurochemical structures, they have physiological densities, they have physiological holding structures. So in working through the physical body and providing a space for these layers of the false self, the conditioned self, former aspects of the self that all are wound and bound up in a physical, energetic, neurochemical architecture, the death that happens is one that really allows a space for the truth of one's soul, spirit, higher self to come through. What I see a lot happening for people is, yes, there's huge emotional releases that happen through the permission to unwind physically. And with that emotional release, a whole mental framework, a whole programmatic, software set of thought forms is allowed to be released. And somebody being held in that space of the in-between, in that space of emptiness where who they were is dissolving and who they're becoming has not yet quite come through yet. It's scary and it's destabilizing. It is an ego death experience, and it's an experience that a lot of people have during psychedelic or plant medicine journeys or near-death experiences, or in the space of really intense tragedies, traumas, really disruptive transitions, where there's no ground, there's no stability underneath your feet. But that void space, that fertile void space, is really opportune, and it's a space of pure possibility and pure creation. And oftentimes, if we're moving through those transitions without either support or intention or clarity around what's happening, or giving ourselves the space to be in that void, we can quickly just grasp for security, safety, certainty, often in the form of other people's ideas for us, other people's paths in life. So this space of allowing the channel of the higher self, the wisdom of the higher self, the wisdom that's really encoded in the physical body, giving space and a process for that to come through and be clarified and be integrated, is the journey that I take people through.
So many questions out of that. One of which is, and maybe it's a yes or no, or maybe it's a yes and, or maybe it's it depends. I don't know. But is the do you believe that the ego is part of our higher self, or is it part of our lower self?
I believe that it's an essential part of the self, an essential part of our human infrastructure, and yes, absolutely connected to the higher self. It is. It is something that we utilize in this realm, in this, earthbound human experience for our higher self, for Source, God, to work through. And we all have a very important, completely unique, completely divine blueprint of an ego that, it has the accumulation of all of our life experience, that we get to really learn how to work with and merge with the higher self, with our evolved aspects to really bridge heaven and earth.
So the ego is an amalgamation of our life experiences. Is
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
More or
how
less.
else would you how would you define the ego?
Yeah. I mean, I would define it as an operating system. It contains the personality, it contains the psyche, it contains, the way our mind and emotional mapping system works and operates, that is much more tethered to and dependent on how it was constructed through our lived experience.
Then why do we need to kill it?
I don't believe we need to kill it, but I believe that many people are operating from an ego structure that is not really their own, that was programmed, conditioned, kind of formed by outside influences, by inputs through, and this is just part of the journey of our human evolution. It's kind of part of the game, I believe, that our higher selves constructed for us. The parental conditioning, the church, the school, the environment that we grew up in gives us a set of messages, gives us a belief that we should be a certain way in order to survive, in order to belong, in order to get to a certain outcome in in our life path. And I believe, there's information that we have and we can and should be sourcing from within. And when I say within, I'm really referring to the spirit, the soul that's connected. I always point up here, but higher self is inside of us. It's it's inside of our physical bodies already. It's just a process of really allowing space for that to be unfurled and translated oftentimes, and given permission to be the unique expression, the essential expression that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to stay on this topic because this for me was something that was so ungrounded and so unclear and so ambiguous and so like, no. I remember when I was, crazy story, but I was in on a trip in Bali with this was a whirlwind romance, but I thought this was going to be my partner for life, and we get to Bali, and Bali is, for those who've been to Bali, it's no joke. Niepe is a real thing. For those who know what I'm talking about, it's like there's gargoyles there for a reason, and there's the light, and there's the bright, and there's the full-on shadow. And midway through the trip, she said, "If you want to be with me, you need to kill your ego. You need." I think that's the way she said it. And it was and for me, I was like, well, but my ego is actually what gets me out of bed in the morning, and where the drive is, and as you said, it's the amalgamation of what I know to be true and what have you. And there was a lot of projection in that, so I kind of exited stage left and was like, wow, that's it. But I've come to appreciate some things about what we're saying here. It's not like, because the scary part was like, I don't want to kill everything that I know to be true. I don't want to, like, the amalgamation of all the twists and turns is how I got here today, and it's made me who I am today, and I don't want to kill that, like wipe it clean. And I was also coming from a standpoint of like, oh, fill your cup up. Just keep filling your cup up. Be full. And there's this notion around. I remember Satya, shout out to this king, and the first time I asked him, what does it mean to live life golden? He says, to be empty. And I didn't know what that meant at that time. Yeah. But I'm starting, you start to put it together, and even what you said around, like, this notion around, we could become so tethered to what we were. That's our identity. And when you put these things together around, well, what does it look like to actually empty the vessel? What does it look like to allow something new to come in? What does it look like to let go of saying, I am this, and that's how I identify myself. I am Jeff, I am a fashionista. Like, who the fuck cares? I mean, it's like, no, is that really who you are? That's what you do. I'm more interested in like why you do what you do. But the point is what I'm really receiving in terms of this notion around the ego death. It's really like, I'll put it in the expression of Emilio Ortiz, which is he is an interviewer of the Titans of Transformation. That's the way I describe him. And what he said to me was something so powerful at the end of our podcast. He says, if I 5 years from now am still thinking the way that I'm thinking now, I will be disappointed in myself. Yeah. And I got chills. And I was like, oh, it's about growth. It's about expansion. And I look no further than my 92-year-old father, who's like curious. It's like children, we know this, up to the age of 4, what do they ask like 4,000 times? What? What's the question they ask? I
don't know.
Why?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
About everything. And why? And why? And why? Yes.
And why? Why is the sky blue? Why? And what happens to us as adults, as we grow into adults, we start asking why from a place of like protection and ego and judgment. And
to create certainty versus being curiosity.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so even like this notion around like ego, death, emptying, go back to the why with curiosity and wonderment and joy with an empty vessel. So if that's what we're talking about here, like that's what I'd like for you to ground and your own words of like, what does ego death mean as being a queen of ego death? From that perspective, because if we're in this genre of an ocean, now I think people can say like, oh, it's safe to jump in, instead of like, wait, I'm jumping in without a safety net, completely naked, in a black hole with no identity of who I've been. No, thank you. I'll go watch this other movie, which, at least I, know whether it's romantic comedy or whatever. So I'd love to have you take us on that journey and really make this really, accessible for people to say like, oh, fuck yeah. All right, let's all go ego death every day and see it through the lens around expansion and love and curiosity and all the other things that you'll take us through right now.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
I'm going to take a breath after that.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that.
That's what happens, just the channel opens. And
wow, you're good.
It's can just can be completely reborn in the space of 5 minutes. Yeah. And I mean, I think what you're alluding to and speaking to around every day, every moment is really a brand new, like we are reborn, we are renewed, we have an opportunity to choose and create anew in every single breath. We are not bound to what was, what has been. And, that is very like lofty and metaphysical in a sense. And, and there is an ego infrastructure that we have the opportunity to really refine, calibrate, get familiar with, get really intimate with, and craft and create over time. When a lot of kind of mainstream society is speaking to needing to kill the ego and get rid of it. And, I really believe they're referring to the aspects of the ego that is rooted in trauma, that is rooted in self-protection mechanisms, that is rooted in the layers that we've built up to cope with the lives that we're living. And that's a really real thing. Everyone is doing the best all of the time with the resources and information that they have, with the level of awareness that they have at that time. Everybody's operating system, ego operating system, is profoundly intelligent, is so intricate, the ways in which it rearranges reality in order to function in the environment under the conditions that it's been given is fascinating and brilliant. And I believe we are reaching a point in our collective evolution, in our expansion of consciousness, where we recognize that there are infinitely more options than we were previously told or taught to believe. And the process, the phenomenon of ego death, there is an experience of a grieving process, of a dying off that really needs to be acknowledged and held and honored, because as we transition into new aspects of ourselves, into new awarenesses, into creating from a different template, we have to say goodbye. We have to let go of what was formerly protecting us and keeping us safe and giving us a sense of certainty, which is really hard to to let go of. And the aspect of allowing for that grieving process, and then that, the 7 stages of grief is really, really true inside of this experience as well. And giving an opportunity for that void space to recognize that we are masterful creators. To just reset, come back to center, come back to the stillness and the alignment point of what is true in this exact moment. Letting go of any of the threads that feel like they need to be carried through or wound back through. Yeah.
So is that the simplistic definition of ego death, which is allowing what's real in this moment to come through? Is
I believe so. Yeah. Not holding on to anything of the past, anything that we've previously constructed, either consciously or unconsciously, to operate.
John Jay has a masterful song, and the lyrics of the song is "Let go or be dragged."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a motherfucker right there.
For real.
So we're gonna play a little game called 3 Layers Deep.
Okay.
So this is just gonna be like a quick hit. So in one sentence, ego death is
the letting go of what is not true.
What is the feeling of the feeling when you let go of what is not true?
A dissolving, a releasing, an opening.
And if the entire world experienced that collectively, what happens when that happens?
We have the opportunity to create and to be and to experience from a source of love and purity and truth that always is, always has been, is always available to us.
That's available to anybody at any time.
Anytime, yeah.
That right there is the golden mic drop. So, at this point in the episode, I invite my co-spirator to actually make the sound of the golden mic drop, the auditory sound.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. I love that. I love it every time. I just want to also just go deeper into the practice of what you've been trained in and what you invite people into. And then also, and you could take this first or second, how we can use the tools of our own bodies as recently been described to me as like this notion of a heart brain. How we can use, our bodies know the score. How we can autocorrect ourselves without the need of going and doing a workshop, a love shop, reading a book, taking a, what have you. So, those are 2-part questions. You can take either one first, but love to hear how you take people through that process and how we can do it for ourselves.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. In my perspective and in my training and the lineages that I've worked within, I really work with the body as the subconscious mind. And my background in this work is pretty multifaceted and very integrative. My initial training was in traditional psychotherapy, and then I took a pretty hard right or left, or took a different direction, and really started training very deeply in a number of yoga lineages and certifications and trainings in various forms of yoga therapy, somatic therapy, holistic healing of many Eastern traditions and philosophies, and really had the intention of weaving those 2 worlds together, very East meets West, science, spirit. And in in the process of my own experience with this work, and in the process of taking people through, especially people in the West, I grew up all of my teenage years in Southeast Asia and North Africa. So a lot of my early imprinting was in Buddhism and Hinduism and Islam, and just very, very different ways of being and operating in the world from a very early age. Prior to that, I was really raised in elite competitive gymnastics from 7 to 13 or so. So it was in a very intimate and also complicated relationship with my body for most of my life. It was a tool that I had to train and master, and it didn't have a lot of space to feel. It didn't have a lot of permission to express in an organic way. It was bound by a lot of requirements. And my journey into this work, I believe, is very much an alchemy of that, and very much a contrast of that. So much of my own healing process and the various modalities and practices that I take people through is about allowing the body to express, both physically, energetically, and through the words that are channeled from the space of the subconscious body, to really express what it needs, what it desires, what it's been through, what information it has for us. And so through this integration of many different lineages of holistic therapy, body-based holistic therapy, and really my own methodology that I've developed over the last 20 years or so, really understanding that our physical body is so much more vast than any form of science could even begin to try to capture. These bodies are beings. They are encoded divine life forms that, our mind, our emotions, our psyches, our egos are only just beginning to really understand how to fully optimize, and not only fully optimize, but how to create a conduit within the physical body for source, for spirit to really live through us and create through us, and create an experience that is so much more beautiful and profound and divine than I think we've been led to believe up till this point.
Well, I think that would be a really powerful thing to talk about as how do we get more embodied in our bodies? What are some of the ways and rituals we can come back to our senses? Mm-hmm. All of them.
Yeah.
Like for instance, as I understand and as I had my own human experience, one of the fastest ways to come back to our senses is through our sense of smell. Mm-hmm. And so what can we do to awaken in a synesthesic way, which is a beautiful expression, which means like obliterating a sense, and it becomes so profound the way that we're smelling something. It feels like we're tasting or seeing it, creating a new sense. And then for me, like this notion around like not treating our skin like a second-class citizen, it's our largest organ, and that's really what led me to this notion around like how there's a frequency of fabric. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to have you take us through a journey of our bodies and how we can come back to our senses and awaken it all.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and I think in combining all of the senses in a very ritualistic and practiced sense, I mean, all of these things take consistency. We really have to re-entrain the body, the nervous system, the senses to become more acutely aware and perceptive, and really develop a relationship with all of the different functionalities of this vessel. And I believe like going through the senses one by one is something that we can kind of walk through to get more in tune. Okay, beautiful. So go ahead and just let the eyes close. Really feel your self grounded in this seat. Feel the length of the spine. Start by taking a couple of deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just emptying yourself. Start becoming acutely aware of the sense of touch. Just noticing the feeling of fabric on your skin, the temperature of the air on the back of your neck. Feeling air pass through the nostrils in and out. And just noticing the calibration, the change in its temperature. And then move into what your nostrils, your sense of smell is perceiving. Notice any preference in what you're smelling. Notice any associations, any memories. And move to the sense of taste. Just noticing what's present in your mouth, on your tongue. Seeing if you can perceive different tastes on different sections of the tongue. And again, with the awareness of the sense, just see if any thoughts arise, any mental pictures or associations. Check in and see if it's related to the past or the present. See if it's future oriented. And from there, just check in and see if there's an emotion that comes to the surface with the thought form that was created based on the sense that is perceived. And just start to practice becoming familiar with how this cascade, this loop is formed in your experience. Take a couple breaths, just letting that go in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then just allow space to get really quiet so that you can tune into the sense of hearing. And just picking up on any sounds that are right at the surface of the ears. Then hear the sounds that are present in this room. Hear the sounds that reverberate throughout this whole house. Allow that to expand to the street. Seeing what is perceptible throughout this entire mini metropolis of Venice. What do you hear here? What sounds are coming from outside of you? What sounds are coming from inside of you? Just take another deep breath, letting that go. And then I'm going to invite you to just barely flutter your eyes open, just peering out with a soft gaze through the eyelashes. Seeing what your sense of sight wants to tune into. Checking in, seeing where the mind goes when that happens. Noticing what sensations arise in the physical body as the eyes come online. And let the eyes close again and turn that sight inward. What do you see? What do you notice about the truth of your experience right now? What's most present? What's most alive? Where are you? Who are you in this moment right now? Whenever that feels complete, just take another couple of deep breaths in through the nose and letting it fall out through the mouth of the sigh with a sound. Maybe shake the body. And before jumping into the next thought, into the next space, just allow for space. Allow yourself to honor the transition, the depth that was made available to go in, so that so much more of you can come out.
I experience my heart beat. I was really tuning into the rhythm of my heartbeat, and I was hearing it through my head. I was really feeling the heartbeat. And then when I opened my eyes, all I saw was like patterns and sigils created, like the codes are everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was yeah, I feel like that could be the name of this podcast, Coming Back to Our Senses with Alora Rose.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you.
I feel complete. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to share in opening? I don't know. Why closing? It's opening.
It's an opening.
Always
It's
opening.
closing. It's
opening.
a constant, endless cycle into the infinity and beyond.
Is there anything you'd like to say in hello?
I mean, I think just the metaphor of that is so beautiful, just that we can really let go of, is it beginning, is it ending, is it hello, is it goodbye? It's really all part of the same all of the time, we're in the infinite now. And, I think so much of what we've been speaking to and what's been coming through is just to create space to really acknowledge that, to really allow for what wants to be created, what wants to be birthed, what wants to be expressed through us. An opportunity to do that by not holding on to anything that was, or grasping for anything that will be. That's really often when, at least for me, I've experienced the most magic, and just the being in a flow of energy, being in a dimensional reality that feels so precisely perfect, and something that my mind, my human, couldn't have architected or, conceived of, or, mapped out to any degree. When I'm really allowing life to move through me and to work through me, and really following that, that's really where, we feel God, our higher selves, the truth of what is so beautiful about this human experience and about this life. We're here to play, we're here to receive, we're here to enjoy it, and it's there for us all the time.
And that's what we can do. My greatest invitation for humanity is replace consciousness with deliciousness.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on Drops of Gold. I want to invite everybody as we go about this, for those that stayed with us through the end of this podcast, sometime in the next 24 hours, when you are giving somebody salutations, which would typically be goodbye, just completely twist them up and say, and end as you walk away with hello.
Yeah. Got to keep them on their toes all the time.
Keep them on their toes with hello, which is like, I see you. Let's go. Ashe, all day. Boom.
Yeah.
Alora Rose, thank you so much for being on Drops of Gold.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Drops of Gold. I hope you enjoyed receiving as much as we loved creating. Now, it takes a village. Deep gratitude to producers Josh Robertson and Mark Shapiro for bringing the podcast to life. Special thanks to artist Taib for our signature track, Departures. And most of all, thank you for showing up in your highest vibration, truth, your gold. This episode was brought to you by One Golden Thread. More than clothing, it's a love style. If you're new to the feeling, this is your moment. Use code DROPS of GOLD at checkout at onegoldenthread.com. That's goldenthread.com for a golden gift of your first purchase, from our heart to yours. I'm Jeff Scult, wishing you a radically yes fuck yes day. Aho, ashe, here we grow.